Record.
Recording in progress.
Okay, so let us then begin. And so we'll start with 3 bows to the Buddha, the Dharma, Sangha. Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. And then we do the salutation to the Buddha. And so you could mentally visualize the Buddha as standing or sitting before you. And we recite with devotion, faith and devotion. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Okay, so good morning, everybody, and today is September 18th, 2021, and we're continuing now with our reading of the Anguttara Nikaya, the numerical discourses. We're still in the Book of Fours, the groups of fourfold items, and now we come to Sutta number 173. It's a somewhat difficult sutta, and I considered even sort of skipping it over. But then I saw that sutta number 174 is actually constructed in the same way, just with the change of speakers. So it seems that the compilers of the Nikayas gave some special importance to the sutta, which deals with a rather difficult topic. But still, I thought we should take a look at it. So in the sutta, the Buddha does not participate in the sutta, but this sutta takes the form of a discussion between 2 eminent monks, 2 of the foremost disciples of the Buddha. One, of course, is the Venerable Sariputta, the one who is the one who excelled in panya, in wisdom. And the other is named Mahakotita. And Mahakotita was appointed by the Buddha as the foremost disciple in a particular type of analytical knowledge called, I think this was called the Patisambhida Jnanas. And interestingly, according to, I believe it's the Dajjha de Lun, which is the treatise on the Prajnaparamita Sutra, Mahakotita is there said to be the uncle of Sariputta. He's supposed to be the brother of Sariputta's mother, though I haven't found a basis for that in the Pali commentaries. So whether it's true or not, I don't know. But anyway, Mahakotita, we often see him in the suttas engaged in dialogues with Sariputta. Occasionally he gives discourses on his own, but I think most often he appears in discussions with Sariputta. Okay, so and Mahakotita is a great Arahant disciple. So when he asks questions, he doesn't ask them because he doesn't know the answer himself, but he asks them as a way of setting the stage for Sariputta to give an explanation of some difficult points for the benefit of their students. Yeah, Mahakotita is the foremost disciple in what are called the Patisambhidas. The Patisambhidas are a special type of analytical knowledge. Okay, so Mahakotita comes to see Sariputta and asks him, with the remainderless fading away of the 6 bases for contact, is there anything else? Is there anything remaining? And let us look at the Pali here. Okay, so we have the 6 bases of contact. They're called pasayatana. And what are these 6 bases of contact? They're the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and then the mind faculty. So this is the way, according to the Buddha's teaching, it's through these 6 sense bases that we know the world, that we experience the world. So the world, in fact, there's a sutta in which the Buddha says that it is these 6 sense bases that are called the world in the discipline of the Noble One, because it is through these 6 sense bases that the world becomes present to us. And there's another sutta that occurs in the Anguttara Nikaya, in the Samyutta Nikaya, which is called the All, and I've pasted it in here. It's a very short sutta where the Buddha says, I will teach you the All, and the Pali word is sabbang, or in Sanskrit, sarvang. And so then he says, what is the All? The eye and visible forms, the ear and sounds, the nose and odors, the tongue and taste, the body and tangible objects, the mind and mental phenomena. This is called the All. So this doesn't address the question whether there exists anything outside of or beyond the 6 sense objects. Though it would seem to me that there must be some kind of material basis for the appearance of things as visible forms, sounds, odors, tastes, touch sensations, and of course mental objects. But the Buddha's teaching is not concerned with this question about what lies outside the domain of possible experience, but rather it focuses upon the objects of experience and those faculties that make experience possible. And so in this connection also, there's another sutta of interest that occurs in the Anguttara Nikaya, also earlier actually in the Book of Fours. We would have taken it earlier. This is the Rohitassa Sutta. Yeah, it's Book of Fours, Sutta number 45. Okay, in the sutta, a certain deity named Rohitassa comes to the Buddha and he says, where one is not born, does not grow old, does not die, does not pass away, does not take rebirth, is it possible by traveling to go there? Let me just get that here, the translation. It's number 45. So he says, is it possible by traveling to know, see, or reach the end of the world where one is not born, does not grow old, does not die, does not pass away, and does not take rebirth? And the Buddha says, by traveling, it's not possible to know, see, or reach that end of the world. And when the Buddha says this, then Rohitassa says, this is amazing, astounding, how that was well said by the Blessed One, because, he says, in the past, he was a seer, that's a kind of rishi, with psychic powers, able to travel almost at the speed of light through the sky. And then he made the determination to travel to the end of the world. And he traveled for 100 years without stopping except to eat, drink, to rest, and so on. And yet he passed away without having reached the end of the world. So even if we take a beam of light and shine that beam of light the way scientists are doing with signals sending light out into space, the light travels about 186,000 miles per second. And so in that way, we could determine how many light years away different galaxies are. And we reach billions and billions of light years, galaxies, billions and billions of light years away. And yet still, we haven't reached the end of the world. But then the Buddha says that by traveling, one cannot know, see, or reach the end of the world, where one is not born, does not grow old, does not die, and so on. But he says, without having reached the end of the world, there is no making an end of dukkha. And then he says, it is in this fathom-long body, endowed with perception and mind, that I proclaim the world, the origin of the world, the cessation of the world, and the way leading to the cessation of the world. And when he says this fathom-long body, endowed with perception, probably here what makes perception possible are the 5 physical sense faculties. And then mind would be the mind faculty. So those are the 6 sense faculties situated in this body, which make possible, we could say, the presentation of the world within experience. And so whatever we know, whatever we can determine, will be either something directly perceived by or through these sense bases, through the sense faculties, or something inferred on the basis of sensory experience through mental construction, inference, speculation, and so on. And so now Mahakotita is asking Sariputta, with the remainderless fading away and cessation of the 6 sense bases, the 6 bases for contact, is there anything else? And it seems that what he is asking about is, what is the status of the Arahant who has attained the Nibbana element without a residue remaining? So for the Arahant, the one who is fully liberated in this life, as long as as the body continues to function, as long as life lasts, the 6 sense bases will be operative and a world will be presented to the Arahant. And so this is the element of Nibbana with a residue remaining. The residue are the 5 aggregates that have been picked up or acquired at conception and at birth, and that will continue to operate till the passing away of the Arhat. And as long as the 5 aggregates continue to function, the 6 sense bases will be operative, and through the 6 sense bases, the Arhat will be experiencing a world. But now the question comes up, with the passing away of the Arhat, the 6 sense bases come to an end. There's the remainderless fading away and cessation of the 6 sense bases. So is there anything else beyond this? Sariputta answers, Mahevang avuso. Do not say so, friend. Yeah, Mahevang avuso. Do not speak thus, friend. Okay, so then Mahakotita drives at the same point, taking the negation with the remainderless fading away and cessation of the 6 bases for contact. Is there nothing else? So this is setting up the duality of existence and non-existence as categories for classifying the Arhat with his passing away. With the first question, does the Arhat or the Tathagata continue to exist after death? And with the second question, in effect, he's asking, does the Arhat come to a state of non-existence with his passing away? And Sariputta says again, Mahevang avuso, do not say so, friend. Okay, so next Mahakotita asks a question phrased with the conjunction of the positive and the negative. So with the remainderless fading away and cessation of the 6 sense bases for contact, is there both something else and nothing else? So this is positing the view that tries to combine both existence and non-existence. And again, Sariputta rejects the question by saying, do not say so, friend. Do not say that with the remainderless fading away and cessation of the 6 sense bases, there both exists something else beyond that, or there is nothing else beyond that. And then the fourth alternative is the double negation, the negation of the positive and the negation of the negative. So with the remainderless fading away and cessation of the 6 bases for contact, is there neither something else nor nothing else? So is it the case that the Arhat neither exists after death or does not exist after death? And again, Sariputta rejects the terms of the question. Do not say so, friend. Okay, when Sariputta now, they've gone through the 4 possible alternatives recognized in the ancient Indian system of logic, So now Mahakotita goes through the four alternatives, and he says, in each case you are saying, do not say so, friend. In what way should the meaning of the statement be understood? Okay, and now Sariputta explains why he rejects these four alternatives. So he says, if one says, with the remainderless fading away and cessation of the six bases for contact, there is something else. One proliferates that which is not to be proliferated. And then he repeats the same thing with regard to the other alternatives. In each case, one proliferates that which is not to be proliferated. And these answers, I want to bring up the Pali here. Because the Pali introduces an extremely important term in early Buddhism. In fact, maybe even in the whole history of Buddhism. So the expression that's been translated, one proliferates that which is not to be proliferated. In Pali, it's apapanchang, papancheti. And both words turn on a word in the noun form is papancha. The exact origins or derivation of this word is uncertain, but we could try to determine the meaning by looking at a number of other passages that give us some indication of the usage of this word. And maybe the most helpful is a passage in the Samyutta Nikaya. This is in chapter 35, sutta number 248. And here the Buddha speaks, he uses a different form of the word. Basically, it's the same word in a different grammatical form, papanchita. So he says, I am is a proliferation. I am this is a proliferation. I shall be is a proliferation. I shall be, actually I shall not be is a proliferation. I shall consist of form is a proliferation. I shall be formless. I shall be percipient, shall be non-percipient, neither percipient nor non-percipient. And he continues, proliferation is a disease, proliferation is a tumor, proliferation is a dart. Therefore, you should train yourselves. We will dwell with a mind devoid of proliferation. So proliferation here in this passage we could see is, maybe we could call it the construction of experience, the interpretation of experience, the elaboration of experience in ways that revolve around the concept, the notion of I am, the fundamental idea of I am, us, me. And at the root of us, me is the pronoun ahang, ahang asmi, I am. So this is a sort of fundamental, I would call it a distortion that enters into our experience through the operation of beginningless avijja, ignorance. So when we experience anything through the six senses, that experience gets sort of distorted, elaborated, blown up, and misinterpreted as the experience of an inner subject. something taken to be an existing I, a truly existent subject of experience. And then once we give rise to this notion or grasp onto this notion of a truly existing I, then we have to give some kind of identity to that notion of I. And so we build up the notion, I am this. So we try to identify the I with something. In some cases, it could be identifying with the body. I am the body, or I am my feelings. I am my ideas. I am my undertakings, my projects, my volitions, my activities. Or at the more philosophical level, I am consciousness, the mind, the pure mind, the innermost self or subject of experience. And then once we give some identity to the notion of I am, then we start trying to determine the destination of that I shall be after death. I will not be after death. I'll be annihilated at death. After death, I will consist on. So these are all more elaborate constructions that build upon the original root notion of I am, the most fundamental conceiving or proliferation. So these terms are used pretty much synonymously. We have the word manyita, which is something which is conceived, but conceived wrongly. So we could say misconceived. And it's identical with papancha. And it's also identified here with conceit. Conceit not in the sense of being proud and arrogant, but the most fundamental conceit is like just a deluded notion, a fundamental misconception. And how this conceiving or proliferation enters into experience, for this, the most helpful sutta for illustrating this point is in the Majjhima Nikaya. It's sutta number 18. It's called the Honey Bowl Discourse, Madhu Pindika Sutta. So in this sutta, the Buddha makes a statement. So he says, as to the source through which perceptions and notions born of mental proliferation beset a person, if nothing is found there to delight in, to welcome, to hold on to, this is the end of the underlying tendencies and all other unwholesome states. So the Buddha made the statement to the group of monks, and then he got up and went into his cottage without explaining the meaning. So after the Buddha made that statement, all of the monks were puzzled and bewildered. We didn't understand that statement. It was just incomprehensible to us. Who can explain the meaning? And so as a group, they decided that they would go to a monk named Mahakaccana. Yeah, Mahakaccana was another one of the foremost disciples of the Buddha, who is said to excel in the ability to elaborate upon and to explain short, enigmatic statements of the Buddha. And so the monks go to Mahakaccana and they report the statement of the Buddha, and they say, please elaborate upon that statement for us. Please elucidate that statement. And then Mahakaccana begins, and he says, depending on the I and visible forms, I consciousness arises. The meeting of the three is contact. With contact as condition, there is feeling. And what one feels, that one perceives. So all of this is quite an explanation of the basic genesis of experience, how through the encounter of consciousness with its objects, through the sense base, there arises feeling, and then there arises perception. Okay, then the next stage, one starts to expand upon what one perceives. So what one perceives, that one thinks about. So this introduces the function of vitaka. The verb is vitaketi, which indicates the operation of vitaka, discursive thinking, which is not necessarily bad in itself, because there can be right thinking, accurate thinking, thinking in correct ways about the objects of perception. But then the trouble comes in the next stage. What one thinks about, that one mentally proliferates. And here we come to the verb papancheti, from which the noun papancha is derived. So now as one is thinking about the object, now one is starting to elaborate upon it, to proliferate it. And this is where such ideas as I and I am start to slip into the experience. Now the experience, which has reached the stage of thinking, it's up to this point, it's just been continuing in a direct sequence. But now it starts to revolve in a kind of vortex. It's found a center, and that center is the notion of I am. And so then the text continues with what one has mentally proliferated as the source, perceptions and notions, I put in brackets, born of mental proliferation, beset a person with respect to past, future, and present forms cognizable through the eye. And then the same thing is said with regard to the other 5 sense modalities: the ear and sounds, nose and odors, tongue and flavors, body and tactile objects, the mind and purely mental objects. But we have here a development from thinking to this mental proliferation, and then from the mental proliferation, there arise what are called the perceptions and notions born of mental proliferation. Probably these perceptions and notions born of mental proliferation would be the ideas that are indicated in this sutta. I am this, I shall be, I shall not be, and so on and so forth. And according to the commentaries, the way the commentary explains that papancha are ideas that originate from the 3 roots. There are 3 roots of papancha. These 3 roots are craving, conceit, and wrong views. So craving would give rise to the idea of mine. This is mine. Or I want this. I have to get that. So those kind of thoughts would be papanchas stemming from craving. Conceit, the most fundamental conceit, would be the notion I am. And then as I am gets expanded, it turns into the distinctions I am better, I am number one, I am the best, or I am equal, I'm just as good as them, or the inferiority conceit. I am so bad, so incompetent, so inadequate, so hopeless, so inferior, the inferiority conceit. And then come the wrong views, like the views I will be after death, I will not be, I will consist of form, I'll be formless, and so on. So all of these are the elaborations of craving, conceit, and wrong views, which come from the most fundamental papancha, the notion I am. And so what the Buddha teaches is to uproot, to eradicate, to remove the root of papancha. But the human mind is always proposed to papancha, which takes on, it starts to expand, to elaborate, to proliferate more and more, so that we get so many detailed ways of interpreting things. And when we trace them back to their root, we come to this notion, I am. And there's another interesting sutta which sheds some light on the importance of eliminating papancha. Let's put this all together. Yeah, this is in the Anguttara Nikaya, the Book of 8, Sutta number 30. It's the sutta on the 8 thoughts of a great person. So in the sutta, the Venerable Anuruddha, one of the foremost Arhat disciples of the Buddha, is dwelling in a secluded place. And when he's thinking and reflecting, and then these thoughts occur to his mind, 7 thoughts occur. Apicha sayang dhammo nayang dhammo mahichasa, that this dhamma is for one with few desires, not for one with strong desires. This Dhamma is for one who is contented, not for one who is discontent. This Dhamma is for one who delights in seclusion, not for one who delights in company. This Dhamma is for one who is, so I have 3. This Dhamma is one who is energetic, not for one who is lazy. This Dhamma is one who is mindful, not for one who is unmindful. This Dhamma is one for one who is with samadhi, not for one who lacks samadhi. And this Dhamma is for one who has wisdom, panya, not for one who is